Story 1, The Mirror Convoy. The convoy behind me had been following for 47 miles, and every truck in it was mine. Same Kenworth W900, same dented left fender, same company logo I'd scraped off 3 years ago but could still see the ghost outline of insert and light. There were 8 of them now, and I watched in my side mirror as a 9th identical truck pulled onto I-80 from an exit I'd passed 20 seconds earlier. The driver looked exactly like me, down to the scar on his left cheek from that bar fight in Reno. My name is Robert Hayes, 42 years old, 18 years driving long haul, and until tonight I thought I'd seen everything the road could throw at me. I was wrong. Dead wrong. The kind of wrong that makes you understand why some drivers abandon their rigs at truck stops and never come back. It started outside Des Moines around 11 p.m. I was hauling refrigerated pharmaceuticals to Denver, running my usual route when I noticed headlights matching my speed exactly. Not tailgating, just maintaining perfect distance. In trucking, you develop a sixth sense for other drivers' rhythms. This one moved like me, braked like me, even hit the Jake brake at the same intervals I did. I told myself it was coincidence, maybe another driver running similar equipment with similar habits. Then I passed under an overpass with working lights, and in that brief illumination I saw it clearly, my truck, my exact truck, following me. I grabbed my CB radio. Breaker 19, this is Phantom Rider eastbound on I-80 at mile marker 312. Anyone else seeing weird shit tonight? Static, then my own voice came back. Breaker 19, this is Phantom Rider eastbound on I-80 at mile marker 312. Anyone else seeing weird shit tonight? Not an echo, the timing was wrong. He'd started speaking when I was mid-sentence, matching me word for word. I dropped the receiver like it had burned me. The digital clock on my dash read 11:47 p.m. I'd check it obsessively later, watching the pattern emerge. By midnight, there were 3 trucks behind me. By 12:15, there were 5. They emerged from exits, from rest areas, from nowhere at all. Each one identical. Each one driving with my patterns, my quirks, that slight drift to the left I'd never been able to correct because of an alignment issue I'd been too cheap to fix properly. I floored it. My speedometer climbed to 85, 90, pushing the limits of what the old girl could handle. The convoy matched me. Every single truck accelerated at the exact same moment, maintaining that precise distance. We were a train of identical vehicles, a caterpillar of chrome and metal, all driven by the same person, somehow occupying multiple spaces simultaneously. My phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway, desperate for human connection, for proof that reality still worked the way it should. Robert, my own voice. Robert, you need to stop. You need to pull over. Who the fuck is this? I'm you, we're you. All of us are you. From different times, different choices, different moments. The road brought us together tonight. It does this sometimes when someone's driven it too long, when someone's given too much of themselves to the highway. We're thin places now, Robert, worn through. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the wheel. In my mirrors, the convoy had grown to 12 trucks. 12 versions of me, all following, all waiting for something. That's when I noticed the highway itself was wrong. The mile markers were counting backward. 311, 310, 309. But I was still driving east, still pushing forward. The road was pulling me backward through space, and ahead of me I could see something that made my stomach drop. Another convoy, this one coming toward me. Head-on, also all my truck, also all me driving. There were at least 20 of them. I yanked the wheel right, aiming for the shoulder, but the truck didn't respond. My hands turned the wheel, but we continued straight, as if I was no longer in control. As if I'd never been in control. The steering wheel spun loosely, disconnected from anything mechanical, just a prop I'd been playing with while something else drove. The westbound convoy was closer now. I could see the drivers' faces clearly, all mine, but different ages. One looked 17, around when I'd first got my commercial license. One was ancient, maybe 70, face weathered beyond anything I'd become yet. Some had injuries I recognized, like the time I'd cracked my orbital bone in that accident in Wyoming. Others had scars I'd never received, wounds from timelines where different things had happened. They were all screaming, mouths open, eyes wide, hands pounding on windows. Silent screaming because of course I couldn't hear them. But I could read lips and they were all saying the same thing: don't become US. The convoys collided in perfect synchronization. Metal should age. Ave torn, glass should have exploded. Physics should have applied. Instead, the trucks passed through each other like light through light, and in that moment of intersection, I experienced everything. I was 17 Robert, taking my first solo haul and feeling invincible. I was 24 Robert, crying in a truck stop parking lot after my daughter's funeral. I was 37 Robert, discovering my wife in bed with my dispatcher. I was 53 Robert, dying of a heart attack at the wheel somewhere in Montana. I was 68 Robert, too old and broken to stop, having literally nothing else but the road. I was all of them simultaneously, every choice and consequence, every mile marker and wrong turn, compressed into a single point of excruciating awareness. Then it ended. I was alone again back in my truck, but something was fundamentally different. Wrong. My hands on the wheel were translucent, not invisible but see-through, like I was slowly becoming a ghost. Through my thinning flesh I could see the steering column, see the dashboard lights shining through my chest. The CB crackled to life. Multiple voices, all mine, overlapping. Now you understand, you've been driving the same route forever. This isn't I-80. This is the loop. This is where drivers who can't let go end up. You died 8 years ago, Robert. Heart attack outside Omaha. But you loved the road too much to leave it. I looked in my side mirror. The convoy was still behind me, but now I could see through all the trucks, layers of transparency stacked infinitely deep. And I was becoming one of them. Another ghost truck on an endless highway, driven by another dead man who couldn't accept that his journey had ended. The mile markers continued counting backward. 287, 286, 285. Taking me further from everything I'd been, deeper into whatever this place was. Other trucks were appearing now, different models and companies, all translucent, all driven by fading drivers who stared straight ahead with empty eyes. I tried the doors, locked from outside. I tried breaking the window. My fist passed through it like smoke. I was already more ghost than man, and soon I'd be just another transparent truck in an infinite convoy, driving forever through a nowhere place that wore the face of I-80. My phone rang again. Same unknown number. I didn't want to answer, but my hand moved independently, raising it to my ear. Eventually you'll fade completely, my voice said. Become just another set of headlights in someone else's mirror. Another impossible thing that living drivers glimpse and tell themselves they imagined. You'll follow them like we followed you, trying to warn them, trying to make them understand before they become us. How do I get out? My voice was barely a whisper. You don't. The road never lets go, Robert. You knew that. You felt it every time you climbed back in the cab, every time you chose the highway over home, over family, over life. Now it's got you forever. The line went dead. My truck drove on, autopilot guided by something that wasn't me anymore, toward destinations that didn't exist, making deliveries that would never arrive. In my mirror, the convoy stretched back to infinity, all of us, all trapped, all driving. The clock still read 11:47 p.m. It would always read 11:47 p.m., the moment I died without knowing it 8 years ago, the moment the road had claimed me completely. Ahead, I saw the lights of a living driver, real, solid, unaware, and I felt my truck accelerate slightly, pulling closer, joining the convoy that would eventually appear in his mirrors. Another ghost trying to warn, another voice he wouldn't quite hear. The mile markers kept counting backward, and I realized they would count backward forever, taking me further from life, deeper into death, on this highway that never ended because it had never really begun. I was the convoy now. We were the convoy. All the lost drivers, all the dead ones who loved the road too much to leave it, gathered together in this transparent space between life and death, driving eternally, haunting the highways we'd once called home. And somewhere ahead, I knew, another driver was noticing strange headlights in his mirror. Another driver was about to become us. The road never lets go. Story 2, the backwards rest stop. The woman at the fuel desk counted my change backward, starting at 20 and ending at 1, and when I looked down at my receipt, the date printed was 3 days in my future. March 17th, 2023. Today was March 14th. I knew that for certain because it was my daughter's birthday and I'd missed it for the 5th year running. The clerk smiled at me with too many teeth, and when she spoke, the words came out reversed but somehow still comprehensible. Drive safe, be careful what you're heading toward. I'm Patricia Sullivan, 51 years old, 23 years in trucking. I've stopped at 10,000 rest areas, truck stops, and service. Plazas, This one, somewhere on Route 287 in Texas, shouldn't have existed. There were no other vehicles in the lot despite the sign advertising 24-hour service. The parking lines were painted in the wrong direction, and the building itself was architecturally backward, as if someone had built it using mirror image blueprints. But I needed fuel and my bladder was screaming, so I'd pulled in anyway. Biggest mistake of my life, maybe the last mistake. Inside, the bathroom stalls opened outward instead of inward. The sinks drained upward, water flowing against gravity back into the faucets. In the mirror, my reflection moved a half-second before I did, anticipating my actions. She looked tired, my reflection, more tired than I felt. She mouthed words I couldn't hear. Turn around now. I didn't listen. I never listened. That's how I'd ended up alone at 51, divorced twice, estranged from 3 kids with nothing but a '98 Peterbilt and a route hauling furniture to Dallas. I went back to my truck, receipt clutched in my hand, that impossible future date staring at me. The parking lot had changed. My truck was now parked facing the opposite direction, though I'd definitely pulled in frontward. The street lights were dimming when they should have been brightening as dusk fell. And there was a truck parked next to mine now, a rusted-out Freightliner that looked like it had been sitting abandoned for years, though it hadn't been there 5 minutes ago. I climbed into my cab, turned the key. The engine started, but the sound came out backward, a reverse whoosh of mechanical noise that made my teeth ache. I shifted into drive and the truck went into reverse, slammed the brake and the truck accelerated. Everything was inverted, backward, wrong. I fought with the controls for 3 full minutes, my panic rising, before I figured out the logic. To go forward, I put it in reverse. To stop, I hit the gas. My turn signals indicated the opposite direction. My headlights created darkness instead of light, projecting beams of shadow onto the road ahead. The highway was empty, completely empty. No other vehicles, no signs of life, just asphalt stretching in both directions under a sky that was growing lighter as night fell. Stars were appearing, but they were moving, tracking across the sky at visible speed, and they were the wrong stars entirely. Constellations I'd never seen before, arranged in patterns that hurt to look at directly. My CB radio crackled. A voice, reversed but comprehensible. Westbound on 287, you've entered the backwards mile. Everything you do now, you've already done. Every choice you make, you've already made it 3 days ago. We're watching you from the future, Patricia. We know how this ends. Who is this? What the fuck is happening? You stopped at a rest area that exists 3 days ahead of where you were. Crossed a threshold you can't uncross. Now you're living your life in reverse, heading backward toward your own beginning. Every mile you drive takes you further from when you were and closer to when you'll be. I looked at my fuel gauge. It was filling up as I drove, going from half to 3/4. My trip odometer was counting backward. 1,247 miles. 1,246. 1,245. How do I get back? You don't. You drive backward through your own life until you reach the moment you were born, and then you cease. You unbecome. We've all tried to warn the ones who come after, but you never listen. Nobody ever listens. I threw the CB receiver at the windshield. It bounced off, leaving a crack that instantly healed, the glass knitting itself back together. Backward healing, of course. Mile markers were appearing, but counting in reverse order. 143, 142, 141. I was on Route 287, but it was Route 287 from 3 days in the future, and I was driving backward through it toward the past. Toward my past. The landscape outside was changing, shifting, becoming places I recognized from earlier in my route. That distinctive water tower near Wichita Falls. The truck stop where I'd grabbed dinner yesterday. The accident site from 2 days ago where a four-wheeler had flipped, except now the car was unflipping. Emergency vehicles were leaving. The victim was becoming uninjured. Time was running backward for everything except my consciousness. I was aware, moving forward mentally, trapped in a body and truck moving backward through the timeline. My phone buzzed, text message from my daughter Sarah. Thanks for nothing, Mom, another birthday you forgot. But the message was deleting itself as I watched, letters disappearing from right to left, uncommunicating itself. Then my phone rang, Sarah's number. I answered. Mom, her voice was reversed, chipmunk-high and backward, but some part of my brain was translating it. Mom, where are you? I don't know, baby. Something's wrong. Everything's going backward and I can't stop it. Mom, you're scaring me. You sound weird. Are you okay? Lee, Stand to me carefully. I love you. I know I've been a terrible mother. I know I've missed everything important, but I need you to know I love you. Mom, it's not even my birthday yet. That's 3 days from now. Why are you acting like you forgot it already? The call dropped, because in her timeline, in the real timeline, we hadn't had this conversation yet. But I just lived it backward, experienced the future version first. My life was becoming a movie played in reverse, and I was the only one who knew it. The sky was rapidly cycling through day and night now, a strobing effect that made me nauseous. Each cycle took seconds. I was speeding backward through time, accelerating, days flying past in reverse. My phone showed messages appearing and disappearing, conversations unhappening, my life unwinding. I saw myself in a rest area 3 weeks ago, walking backward out of the bathroom, backing into my truck, driving away in reverse. I was watching my own past from outside, and my past self couldn't see me, couldn't see this future version trapped in backward time. The CB crackled again. You're approaching the moment you became a trucker, Patricia, 23 years ago. When you pass through it, you'll cease to be a driver. You'll be something else again. And you'll keep going backward through every job you had before, through your marriages, through your children's births, watching them get younger, watching them become newborns and then fetuses and then nothing. No, there has to be a way to stop this. There is crash, die, end your backward journey at the moment of death. Some choose that. But if you don't, you'll eventually reach your own birth. And then there's nothing left to become undone. You simply stop existing, erased, never were. I looked at the guardrail. I could do it. Jerk the wheel, flip the truck, end this nightmare. But some coward part of me couldn't. I'd survived too long, endured too much to give up even now, even speeding backward toward non-existence. Years were passing. My truck was getting newer, the wear and tear reversing, damage repairing itself. My hands on the wheel were younger, less weathered. I could feel my body changing, bones settling, muscles tightening, years falling away. I was 45. I was 40. I was 35. I was watching my life in reverse at time-lapse speed, and it was more horrifying than anything I could have imagined. All my choices, all my mistakes, all happening backward, leaving my second husband, leaving my first husband. My kids getting younger, smaller, vanishing into pregnancy. Jobs I'd quit, I was now taking. Places I'd moved from, I was now moving to. The truck was changing too. My Peterbilt was becoming newer models, then older models, morphing through the years. I was driving a vehicle that existed across multiple decades simultaneously, phasing through its own timeline. 30 years old, 25, 20. I was approaching the moment, the day I'd gotten my CDL, the day I'd decided to become a trucker. I could feel it coming, a wall in time I was about to hit. And I realized with absolute clarity what would happen. I'd pass through it and suddenly be someone else. Some other version of Patricia Sullivan who'd never driven a truck, who'd made different choices, and I'd continue speeding backward through that life too. I'd experience every possible version of myself in reverse, every path not taken, every choice unmade, backward and backward and backward until there was nothing left. The day arrived. I was 22 years old, sitting in a DMV office taking my CDL test. But I was experiencing it backward, handing in the completed test, untaking the test, unlearning the answers, walking backward out of the building. The knowledge of trucking was draining from me, 23 years of experience evaporating. I no longer knew how to double clutch, how to back a trailer, how to read a load manifest. I was behind the wheel of a truck. I no longer understood how to drive. The vehicle began changing again. No longer a truck, becoming a car. I was driving my old Honda, the one I'd had in college. I was 20 years old, 19, 18, a teenager. The world outside was transforming faster now, years blurring past. The highway was changing, becoming older roads, dirt roads, no roads at all. Just landscape, just emptiness. 16, 14, 12. I was a child, but still conscious, still aware, trapped in this backward journey. My hands on the steering wheel were a child's hands, small and weak. The vehicle was phasing through different forms, bicycle, tricycle, wagon. 8 years old, 6, 4. My consciousness was fragmenting. Memories were disappearing, not just unwinding, but erasing. I couldn't remember my daughter's name anymore. Couldn't remember why I'd become a trucker. Couldn't remember anything but this eternal backward drive. 2 years old, 1. The world was gone. No road, no vehicle, juice. T-sensation, being held, being born, the trauma of birth in reverse, returning to the womb unbecoming. And then one final moment of clarity before the end. I was nothing. I had never been. Patricia Sullivan ceased to exist, erased from history, because she'd stopped at a rest area that didn't exist in her time and crossed a threshold into a future she couldn't survive. The last thing I experienced was another truck pulling into that impossible rest stop, another driver getting out, another poor bastard about to make the same mistake. And I couldn't warn them. I'd never existed to warn anyone. The backwards mile claimed another victim, and reality adjusted as if I'd never been born at all. Story 3, the breathing trailer. The cargo was breathing. I felt it through the fifth wheel coupling, a rhythmic expansion and contraction that made my cab rock gently forward and back with each inhalation. I'd been hauling the sealed trailer for 6 hours out of Louisville, and the breathing had started somewhere around Indianapolis. Now, crossing into Illinois on I-74, it was getting stronger, more insistent. And I swear to God, it was getting faster, like whatever was in there was waking up. My name is Marcus Chen, 34 years old, 9 years in trucking. I'd hauled everything, frozen meat, live chickens, hazardous chemicals, even human organs for transplant. But this was my first, no questions asked load, the kind that paid triple rate and came with explicit instructions. Don't open the trailer. Don't stop except for fuel. Deliver to the address in Kansas City before dawn. The paperwork listed the contents as biological research materials, and I'd been stupid enough to think that meant lab equipment or tissue samples. I was wrong. The thing in my trailer was alive, very alive. The first real sign came at the weigh station outside Bloomington. I pulled onto the scale, and when the weight flashed on the display, the number was impossible, 87,000 pounds. My truck and empty trailer together weighed maybe 35,000. The trailer I'd picked up was supposed to contain 12 pallets of research equipment, estimated at another 15,000 pounds. Where the hell had the extra 37,000 pounds come from? The weighmaster looked at his screen, looked at my truck, looked back at his screen. You're gonna need to pull around for inspection, driver. I've got sealed cargo, special permit. I handed him the documentation, all legitimate federal permits with priority delivery status. He scanned the papers and his expression changed. Not suspicious anymore, scared. Jesus Christ, you're hauling a Alpha 7 package. I don't know what that means. It means you get back on the road right fucking now and you don't stop for anything. You hear me? Anything. He was backing away from my window, practically running back to his booth. I didn't need to be told twice. I rolled out of there, but my hands were shaking on the wheel. The breathing was stronger now, strong enough that I could hear it through the cab walls. A wet, organic sound, lungs the size of barrels filling and emptying. And there was a smell starting to seep through the ventilation, something between raw meat and formaldehyde, with an underlying sweetness that made my stomach turn. My CB radio squawked to life. Northbound on I-74, you're hauling a red package. We need you to acknowledge your containment status. I grabbed the receiver. Who is this? How do you know what I'm carrying? This is Containment Team 7. We're tracking your vehicle by satellite. We need you to confirm that the trailer seals are intact. I checked my mirrors. The seals were there, heavy metal clamps with tamper-evident tape all still in place. Seals are intact. Good, keep them that way. What you're transporting is a Class A biological entity. It's sedated, but it's starting to metabolize the drugs. You need to reach the facility before it fully wakes up. What the fuck is in my trailer? Static, then. You don't want to know, just drive fast. The line went dead. I pushed the accelerator down, getting my speed up to 75, 80. The truck was shuddering now with each breath from the trailer. I could feel it through the seat, through the steering wheel, through my entire skeleton. Whatever was back there was massive. That's when I heard the scratching. Not clawing, scratching, methodical, deliberate. Something was dragging what sounded like fingernails across the inside of the trailer wall, starting at the front near the cab and slowly working its way down the length. The sound was metal on metal, which meant whatever was making it had nails strong enough to score aluminum. My phone rang. The number was listed as Containment 7. Mr. Chen, we're reading elevated movement in your cargo. Has it breached the internal restraints? How the hell should I know? I can't see in there. The biometric sensors we installed are showing the primary restraint. Straps have failed. The entity is now mobile within the trailer. Do not stop. Do not open the doors under any circumstances. What happens if it gets out? A long pause. Chicago incident, 2019. You probably heard about the gas leak that evacuated 6 city blocks. That wasn't gas. That was a Class B entity, one-third the size of what you're hauling. 73 casualties before we contained it. My blood went cold. You're telling me I'm hauling something that could kill 73 people. No, Mr. Chen, you're hauling something that could kill 7,000 people. The entity in your trailer is fully mature. It's been growing in containment for 4 years. We're transporting it to the only facility equipped to properly terminate it. If it escapes in a populated area, we're looking at a regional catastrophe. The scratching had reached the rear doors. I could hear it clearly now, a rhythmic scraping that matched the breathing. And then the breathing changed, became faster, hungrier. The trailer was rocking violently, my entire rig swaying as whatever was inside moved around, threw its weight against the walls. "It knows you're listening," the voice on the phone said. "They're intelligent, more intelligent than we initially understood. It's testing the walls, looking for weak points." A scream ripped through the night, muffled by the trailer walls but unmistakably human-like. Not human, but close enough to trigger every primal terror in my brain. It was a hunting call, a challenge, a promise of violence. I looked at my GPS. Still 47 miles from the Kansas City facility. 47 miles of maintaining control while hauling something out of a nightmare. The rear doors buckled outward. Just slightly, just an inch or two, but I saw it in my side mirror. Metal bending from inside. The seals were straining, the locks groaning under pressure. "We're reading a breach attempt," the voice said, now urgent. "You need to accelerate. We're scrambling a containment team to intercept you, but you need to keep that thing inside the trailer for another 30 minutes. The doors are failing. We know we're tracking structural integrity in real time. You've got maybe 20 minutes before full breach. There's an emergency protocol. In the cab under your passenger seat, there's a yellow case. Find it." I reached under the seat with one hand, steering with the other. My fingers found hard plastic. I dragged out a case emblazoned with biohazard symbols and warning labels. Inside was a single syringe filled with luminescent blue liquid and a handgun. A fucking handgun. "What the hell is this?" "The syringe contains a concentrated sedative. If the entity breaches, you'll need to manually inject it into any exposed flesh. The gun is in case that fails. Aim for the cranial cluster. They have 3 brains, all located in the upper thorax region." "You want me to fight this thing?" "We want you to survive long enough for the team to arrive. But Mr. Chen, understand this. If it fully breaches and you can't recontain it, you need to drive your rig off the road. Crash it. Destroy the trailer if you can. We cannot allow it to reach a populated area." I was supposed to sacrifice myself. That's what they were telling me. If this thing got loose, I was supposed to kill it and myself to prevent it from reaching Kansas City. The trailer doors exploded outward with a shriek of tearing metal. One door hung by a single hinge. The other flew off entirely, tumbling across 3 lanes of highway behind me. And in the darkness of the trailer interior, I saw movement, something large, something that reflected my tail lights in a dozen too many eyes. It was pulling itself toward the opening, and in the brief illumination, I got a good look at it. Something like a human torso, but scaled up to 9 feet tall, covered in chitinous plates that overlapped like armor. Too many limbs, some ending in hands, others in blade-like protrusions. The head was wrong, bulbous, and segmented with those multiple eyes arranged in a circle. And a mouth. Jesus Christ, the mouth. Vertical instead of horizontal, opening to reveal 3 rings of teeth. The thing in my trailer had been human once. I could see it in the basic structure, the underlying anatomy. But something had changed it, grown it, transformed it into this amalgamation of human and insect and nightmare. It screeched again, that almost human sound, and began pulling itself out of the trailer. I slammed the brake. The trailer jackknifed, swinging wide, and the creature tumbled backward into the trailer's interior, caught off guard. I had seconds. I grabbed the syringe and the gun, kicked open my cab door, and jumped down. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to leave the rig and flee into the darkness. But I thought about Chicago, 73 dead, and this thing was bigger, hungrier, more developed. I couldn't let it loose. I ran to the trailer. The creature was already recovering, pulling itself upright on its too many limbs. It saw me, and those dozen eyes focused with predatory intelligence. It knew what I was going to try, and it was going to stop me. It lunged faster than anything that size should move. I dove left, hitting the asphalt hard, and felt something whistle past my head. One of its bladed limbs had missed my skull by inches, striking the pavement with enough force to chip concrete. I rolled, came up running, and saw my chance. The thing had overextended, was off balance. I jumped onto the trailer's side step, used it to launch myself onto the creature's back, and drove the syringe down into what I hoped was flesh between the chitinous plates. The needle went in, I pressed the plunger. The blue liquid emptied into the creature's body. It screamed, a sound so loud I felt blood vessels burst in my ears. Pain shot through my head as my eardrums ruptured. The creature spun, trying to dislodge me, but I held on, riding it like a bull, praying the sedative would work. Its movements became sluggish. The limbs stopped coordinating properly. It stumbled, crashed into the trailer wall, collapsed onto its side. The eyes were still open, still aware, but the body wasn't responding anymore. I slid off its back, my entire body shaking. My hands were covered in something that wasn't quite blood, more like translucent oil. The creature was still breathing, but shallow now, sedated, contained, barely. Headlights appeared on the horizon, multiple vehicles moving fast. The containment team. They surrounded my rig within minutes, dozens of people in hazmat suits and tactical gear. They secured the creature with chains and restraints, pumped it full of additional sedatives, welded the trailer doors shut with the thing inside. A woman in a suit approached me. "Mr. Chen, you did well, you contained the entity." "What the fuck was that thing?" "Project Chrysalis, Subject 47, an attempt to create enhanced soldiers using genetic modification and forced evolution. It went wrong. They all went wrong. We've been transporting the survivors to a termination facility for the past 3 years. That used to be human. It used to be 12 humans. The transformation process causes cellular fusion. Multiple bodies merge into a single entity. Subject 47 was created from a dozen volunteers who didn't understand what they were signing up for. I vomited. Right there on the highway, I emptied my stomach. The thought of 12 people trapped inside that thing, conscious or not, transformed into that horror. They paid me the triple rate, gave me a bonus for the containment action, made me sign a stack of NDAs that probably weren't even legal, and they told me they'd call me again if they needed another driver for a red package. I said yes. God help me, I said yes. Because the money was good, and because someone had to do it, and because now I'd seen what was out there, I couldn't unknow it. But every time I hook up a trailer now, before I start driving, I place my hand on the side and wait, feeling for that telltale breath, that rhythmic expansion, praying I'll never feel it again. Knowing I probably will. Story 4, The Radio Voices. The voice on CB Channel 19 was reading my thoughts 3 seconds before I could think them. "You're wondering if you should take exit 147 for fuel," it said, and then 3 seconds later I had the thought, should I take exit 147 for fuel? "You're going to decide no, push on another 50 miles, the voice continued, and then I decided exactly that. The voice was predicting me, or I was remembering the voice, or time was broken. Or I was losing my mind, probably the last one. My name is David Kowalski, 28 years old, 5 years driving long haul. I'd always kept my CB on Channel 19 monitoring trucker chatter, weather reports, occasional smoky sightings, normal road communication. But somewhere around Omaha on I-80 the channel had changed, or I'd changed, or reality had developed a 3-second lag and I was living in the echo of my own future. "You're scared now," the voice said, male, middle-aged, with a distinctive rasp. "You're going to reach for the CB to ask who I am? Don't bother. I'm you, David. I'm you from 3 seconds in your future, and I'm warning you about what's coming." 3 seconds later, I reached for the CB to ask who he was. I stopped myself, froze with my hand on the receiver. If I didn't do what the voice predicted, would that break the pattern? Would that prove this was just a hallucination, some kind of carbon monoxide poisoning or early-onset schizophrenia? "You're wondering if you don't do what I predict, will it break the pattern?" the voice said. "It won't. You can't change what I've already seen you do. I've lived these 3 seconds already, David. From my perspective, you've already done everything you're about to do. Your present is my past." My hand dropped. "D from the CB, exactly as predicted." "Good, now listen carefully. In approximately 4 minutes, you're going to see a stranded motorist on the shoulder. A woman in a red jacket standing next to a white sedan. You're going to consider stopping. Do not stop. That woman isn't human. She's a loop point, a temporal anomaly that traps people in recursive time. If you stop, you'll be caught in the same 3-second loop I'm in, repeating the same moments forever. I checked my mirrors. Empty highway behind me, nothing ahead but darkness and occasional reflector posts. No woman, no sedan. The voice was wrong or lying, or I was having a complete breakdown. I'm not wrong, the voice said, responding to thoughts I'd had 3 seconds ago. And in 30 seconds, you're going to see her. 73 seconds after that, you're going to make the choice that ruins your life. I'm trying to save you from my fate. 30 seconds passed. My headlights illuminated the shoulder ahead. There she was, red jacket, white sedan, arm raised, waving desperately. I moved my foot toward the brake instinctively, the driver's impulse to help, but the voice screamed, "Don't stop, David, for the love of God, don't stop." I pressed the accelerator instead, blew past her at 70 miles per hour. In my mirror, I saw her watching me go, arms still raised, face expressionless. And then something impossible, she flickered, like a video glitch. For just a moment, she was in multiple positions simultaneously, waving and walking and standing and bending all at once, all overlapping. You saw it, the voice said, and now I heard relief in it. You saw the temporal distortion, that's what she is. A person trapped in so many recursive loops that she exists in multiple times at once. And she wants company. She wants to trap others so she's not alone in her eternal 3 seconds. Who are you really? I asked aloud, not using the CB, just speaking into the cab. I told you, I'm you. I'm David Kowalski from 3 seconds ahead. I stopped for her 7 years ago on this same stretch of highway, hauling furniture to Denver, just like you are now. And the moment I stepped out of my cab to help, I fell into the loop. I've been living the same 3 seconds for 7 years, David. The same 3 seconds over and over, millions of times. But somehow I can transmit back, warn my earlier self. This is my one chance to break free. That's impossible. Is it? You're experiencing it right now. You're living proof that time isn't what we think it is. And I'm trapped in a moment where I'm reaching for her hand, where she's smiling at me, where I'm about to be pulled into her temporal field. 3 seconds. Forever. I can't move forward. Can't move backward. Just existing in that same 3-second window, conscious, aware, unable to die or sleep or do anything but experience those 3 seconds again and again and again. I was sweating despite the air conditioning. My heart was hammering. How do I help you? You can't, but you can avoid becoming me. Stay on I-80. Don't stop for anyone. Don't answer your CB if anyone else starts talking. There are others, David. Other loop points scattered across the highway system. Other people trapped in moments, trying to pull fresh victims into their time streams. The highways are infected with them. Miles passed. The voice continued its 3-second predictions, always accurate, always slightly ahead of my thoughts and actions. It was maddening, having my future narrated before I lived it. But the voice was also company, another consciousness, even if it claimed to be my own. Exit 167 is coming up, the voice said. You're going to need fuel soon, but the truck stop at exit 167 is wrong. It's another trap. Different kind, not a loop point, but a void space. A place that exists outside normal time. If you stop there, you'll never leave. The exit will just keep coming back over and over, no matter how far you drive. Choose exit 182 instead. That one is clean. How do you know all this? Because I've driven this route a million times, David. In my 3 seconds, I'm still on this highway, still hauling this load, still moving through the beginning of the journey. And in those 3 seconds, I've had 7 years to observe, to listen, to understand what's happening to our reality. The highway system is becoming unstable. Temporal anomalies are appearing with increasing frequency. Something is breaking down. Exit 167 appeared. The signs looked normal. Clean, well-lit truck stop visible from the highway. Every instinct said it was fine. But I passed it, trusting the voice, aiming for exit 182. Thank you, the voice said, and for the first time I heard something like emotion in it. You're the first version of me that's listened. I've tried warning myself 647 times. The others all stopped. All got trapped in various anomalies. All created new versions of themselves in different time loops. But you listened. Maybe this timeline can be saved. Exit 182 came and went. I fueled up at a normal truck stop, surrounded by normal truckers, everything functioning correctly. The voice remained with me, a constant companion, always 3 seconds ahead. Hours passed, the sun came up, and gradually I noticed something wrong. The voice was getting closer, not 3 seconds ahead anymore, 2.5 seconds, 2 seconds. The gap was shrinking, his future and my present were converging. I know, the voice said, now only 1 second ahead. The loop is degrading. When I tried to warn you, I created a temporal feedback. I changed my own past, which means I'm starting to not exist. The version of me that stopped for the woman is being overwritten by the version of me that didn't. Two timelines merging. What happens when they fully merge? I don't know. No one's ever escaped a loop before. I might cease to exist. Or I might snap back into normal time, 7 years older, suddenly free. Or the paradox might destroy us both. We're in uncharted territory. Half a second ahead now, the voice was speaking simultaneous with my thoughts. We were nearly synchronized. David, the voice said, and now it was my voice completely speaking in unison with my internal monologue. When we merge completely, remember what you learned. The highways are dangerous now. Temporal instability is spreading, and there are others trapped like I was. If you see someone stranded, someone flickering, someone who looks at you with eyes that have seen too much time, don't stop. Save yourself. I couldn't. 0 seconds. The voice and my thoughts were one. And then something shifted, a fundamental change in my perception. I was suddenly aware of two timelines simultaneously, one where I'd stopped for the woman and been trapped, one where I'd driven past and escaped, both existing together, overlapping, merged in my consciousness. I remembered 7 years of looping, the same 3 seconds repeated millions of times, the madness, the desperation, the eventual acceptance. And I also remembered this drive, this normal journey, escaping the traps. I was both versions of David Kowalski simultaneously, the one who'd been caught and the one who'd been saved. 2 lives, 2 experiences occupying the same body. The CB crackled. A new voice, female. Eastbound on I-80, I'm receiving temporal feedback from your vehicle. Are you experiencing a merger event? Yes, I said, my voice strange to my own ears, layered somehow, 2 versions of me speaking together. We've been tracking anomalies on the highway system. You're the first successful loop escape we've documented. We need you to come in for analysis. Exit 203, there's a facility disguised as a rest area. We're studying this phenomenon. Who are you? Temporal Integrity Commission. We've been monitoring highway anomalies for 3 years. The infrastructure is causing temporal distortions. Too many people, too many vehicles, too much repeated travel over the same routes. Reality is wearing thin on the major interstates. You've experienced it firsthand. We need to understand how you escaped. I took exit 203. The rest area was anything but. Underground facility, dozens of personnel, equipment that looked more like science fiction than reality. They scanned me, interviewed me, examined the temporal duplication in my consciousness. You're existing in 2 states simultaneously, a researcher explained. One timeline where you spent 7 years in a loop and one where you didn't. Both equally real, both equally you. The paradox should have destroyed you, but instead you've become a temporal junction point. You exist in multiple times at once. What does that mean? It means you're going to experience the future before it happens. You'll know things seconds, maybe minutes before they occur. You become what the woman on the highway was. Not trapped in a loop, but spread across time, existing in multiple moments simultaneously. They kept me for 3 days, studied me, tried to understand what I'd become. And then they released me with a warning. Don't drive the major interstates anymore. Your temporal presence will create distortions. You're a walking anomaly now. But I'm a trucker. The highway is my life. So I went back out there, hauling loads, driving routes, living in my strange, doubled existence. Always knowing what's coming 3 seconds ahead. Always remembering a past I both lived and didn't live. And sometimes, on lonely stretches of highway, I see others like me. People flickering between moments, existing in multiple times. We recognize each other. We nod as we pass. We're the highway ghosts now, the ones who fell into temporal traps and somehow survived, carrying multiple timelines in our consciousness. The road did this to us, and the road won't let us go. I keep driving. What else can I do? It's who I am, who I was, who I. LLB. All at once, forever. Story 5, the mile marker that doesn't end. Mile marker 187 on Highway 54 in New Mexico has existed for 73 hours, and I've passed it 416 times without moving forward. The sun rises and sets on schedule. Other vehicles pass me going both directions. I burn fuel and eat food and my body ages, but I cannot get beyond mile marker 187. I am trapped in a single mile of highway that repeats infinitely, and I don't know if I'm driving in circles or if space itself has folded into a loop, or if I died somewhere and this is hell. My name is Jennifer Ortiz, 46 years old, 14 years in trucking. I was hauling industrial equipment from Albuquerque to Tucumcari, a route I'd driven at least 50 times before. Nothing unusual, nothing dangerous, just flatbed cargo properly secured and a straight shot across New Mexico on a clear October afternoon. Until mile marker 187, where everything stopped making sense. I noticed it after the third time. Mile marker 186, then 187, then suddenly 186 again without any turns or exits. I thought I'd gotten confused, misread the numbers. But then it happened again, and again. 186, 187, 186, 187, a 2-mile loop with no visible beginning or end. The landscape was identical each time, same rock formation on the left. Same dead tree on the right, same cloud pattern in the sky that never moved. I stopped at what I thought was mile marker 187, got out, examined the marker itself. Standard green metal sign properly installed, showing 187 in reflective numbers. I walked up the highway 100 yards to find 188, but there was no 188. The road continued straight, perfectly normal, but the next marker I encountered was 186, going the other direction. I'd somehow walked in a straight line and ended up behind where I'd started. I tried driving off-road, pulled my rig onto the shoulder and attempted to drive around whatever this anomaly was. But the desert wouldn't let me. Every direction I turned, the ground became impassable. Sudden gullies, boulder fields, terrain that looked flat from the road but became impossible to traverse. After 2 hours of attempting escape, I'd consumed a quarter tank of fuel and gone nowhere. Other vehicles passed me regularly. I flagged down a pickup truck, an elderly man who looked at me with concern. "Are you stuck?" he asked. "The highway," I said. "It's looping. I can't get past mile marker 187. He frowned. "Mile marker 187. We passed that 15 miles back." "No, it's right there." I pointed at the marker 50 feet away. He looked where I was pointing. "That's mile marker 202, miss. Are you feeling all right?" I read the marker again. It said 187, clear as day. "You're seeing 202. "Yes, look, I can call someone for you if you need help. You might be having heat stroke or—" "I'm fine," I lied. "Sorry, my mistake." He drove away and I stood there trying to understand. He'd seen a different mile marker. From his perspective, he was at 202 and I was the confused one. But from my perspective, I was at 187 and trapped. Were we experiencing different realities? Was I in some kind of localized pocket dimension? I called 911. The dispatcher answered, professional and calm, and I explained my situation. She was patient at first, then increasingly concerned, not about my predicament but about my mental state. "Ma'am, I'm showing your phone's GPS location as Highway 54, mile marker 202. I'm at 187. Your phone says otherwise. I'm going to send a state trooper to do a wellness check." I waited 4 hours. No trooper ever arrived. I called 911 again, and a different dispatcher told me they had no record of my previous call, no welfare check requested, no officer en route. Like the conversation had never happened. That's when I understood I was in a pocket of space-time that was disconnected from the outside world. People could pass through it. I saw dozens of vehicles every hour, but they weren't experiencing the loop. Only I was trapped. Only I was repeating mile marker 187. I tried following other vehicles. Pulled out behind a semi hauling lumber, stayed on his tail, determined to follow him through whatever barrier was holding me. Mile marker 186, mile marker 187, and then the truck ahead of me simply vanished, not gradually, not turning off, just there 1 second and gone the next, leaving empty highway. And my odometer showed I was back at mile marker 186. Days passed. I slept in my cab, rationed my food, tried everything I could imagine to escape. I attempted driving at different speeds, crawling at 5 miles per hour, flooring it at 90. I tried driving backward, facing the wrong direction. I tried stopping at exact coordinates between the mile markers and waiting for hours, hoping the loop would break. Nothing worked. 186, 187, 186, 187, infinite repetition. I started keeping a log, documenting each pass through the mile. What time it was, what vehicles I saw, any T. In Y variations, and I began noticing patterns. Every 12th loop, a specific white sedan passed me going the opposite direction. Every 37th loop, a jackrabbit crossed the road at the exact same spot. The world was repeating, but in larger cycles than I'd initially realized. On loop 207, I saw another truck stopped at mile marker 187. Same model as mine, same company logo. I approached cautiously and saw the driver outside, a woman who looked exactly like me. Same age, same build, same clothes. She stared at me with recognition and horror. "You're trapped too," she said. "Who are you?" "Jennifer Ortiz. I've been here for 6 months." "That's impossible. I'm Jennifer Ortiz. I've been here for 6 days." We stared at each other, both of us understanding the implication. We were the same person from different points in the loop's timeline. I was seeing my own future. In 6 months, I'd still be here, still trapped, still repeating this mile. "Does it ever end?" I asked. Future me shook her head. "I've passed marker 187 over 20,000 times. I've seen 14 other versions of you. We're all trapped in slightly different temporal offsets. We're haunting ourselves." "How do we get out?" "I don't think we do. I think this is it. This is what we become. Echoes stuck in an infinite mile, overlapping with our own past and future selves, driving forever and going nowhere." I refused to accept that. I got back in my truck and drove, pushing harder, faster, more desperately. But future me was right. Loop after loop, I began encountering other versions of myself. Some who'd been trapped for years, their trucks rusted and failing, their bodies gaunt from malnutrition. Some who'd arrived hours ago and were still optimistic about escape. We were a convoy of ourselves, all trapped in the same impossible mile, all experiencing it at different rates. On loop 416, I encountered the oldest version. She was maybe 70, bent and gray, her truck long dead, sitting by the roadside. I stopped to talk to her. "How long?" I asked. 24 years, she whispered. "I've been at mile marker 187 for 24 years. Have you found anything, any way out?" "There is no out. This mile is eternal. It's a crack in reality, a place where distance stopped working. We're in the space between 186 and 188, and that space is infinite. We'll die here, Jennifer, all of us. And our bodies will just be more landmarks on the loop, more things for our earlier selves to discover." I looked around and realized she was right. In the distance, I could see abandoned trucks scattered at various points along the mile. My future trucks. Vehicles I'd eventually drive until they failed, then abandon, then encounter again when I looped back around. The mile was filling up with my own debris. "Why doesn't anyone else get trapped?" I asked. "Why just us?" "I don't know. Maybe we did something. Maybe we broke some rule of the road we didn't know existed. Maybe we're just unlucky, but we're here now, and here is forever." I drove away from old me, but her words haunted me. 24 years. Would I last that long? Would I go mad before then? I was already talking to myself, having conversations with my other selves scattered across the loop. Was that insanity or just adaptation? Loop 500. I stopped documenting. The numbers didn't matter anymore. Loop 700. I encountered myself dead in a truck at marker 186. Future me finally succumbed to starvation or despair. I didn't investigate too closely. Loop 1000. I'd stopped trying to escape. Just drove mechanically, 186 to 187, 187 to 186, an automaton repeating motion without purpose. Loop 2000. I saw rescue vehicles, helicopters, news crews, but they weren't there for me. They were covering something else, some other event at mile marker 187. From their perspective, nothing was wrong. They couldn't see me or my truck. I was a ghost to them, existing in a parallel layer of reality. Loop 5000. I'd become old me, gray, exhausted, waiting for it to end. My truck had died at loop 4612. I was walking now, just walking the same mile over and over because what else was there to do? Loop 7000. I saw young me, the version from my first day, trapped, fresh and desperate. I tried to warn her, but she couldn't hear me. We existed in the same space but different times, and the gap was too wide. Loop 10,000. I was dying. I could feel it. Heart failing, body shutting down. I collapsed at mile marker 187, exactly where I'd first noticed the loop, and I understood with perfect clarity this was always where I would die. The loop wasn't trapping me. I was the loop. My death here would create the anomaly that would trap my younger self, creating a causality loop that had no beginning or end. I was about to become the thing that had caught me. My last th. Aught, as my heart stopped at mile marker 187, was a desperate apology to my younger self. To all my younger selves. I'd created this prison. My death would echo backward through time, creating the trap that I'd fallen into, ensuring that I'd end up right here, dying right now, creating the loop that would trap me. Infinite repetition, eternal causality, a snake eating its own tail. Mile marker 187 exists forever because I died there. And I died there because mile marker 187 exists forever. And somewhere, a younger Jennifer Ortiz just passed mile marker 186, heading toward 187 for the first time, about to discover that some highways have no end. Story 6, The Passenger Who Won't Leave. He was in my passenger seat when I woke up at the Flying J in Amarillo, and I knew immediately that he was dead. Not zombie dead, not undead, just dead. A corpse in my truck, wearing my spare jacket, buckled into my passenger seat like he belonged there. His skin was gray, eyes cloudy with early decomposition, and he was staring straight ahead through the windshield like he was patiently waiting for me to start driving. My name is Thomas Brennan, 39 years old, 12 years as an owner-operator. I'd parked at the Flying J 6 hours earlier for mandatory rest, locked my doors, secured my truck. Nobody should have been able to get in. Nobody living, anyway. But there he was, maybe 50 years old, wearing clothes from the 1980s with an expression of desperate determination on his dead face. I screamed, of course I screamed. Then I grabbed my phone to call 911, but before I could dial, the corpse spoke. "Please drive." His voice was dry, whispery, like wind through dead leaves. His jaw didn't move properly, just hung slack while the words emerged from somewhere deeper. "I need to get home. I've been trying to get home for 36 years. "What the fuck? How are you talking?" "I'm dead, Thomas. Been dead since 1987. But I'm not gone, not yet. I'm stuck, tied to this stretch of I-40 trying to finish one last journey. I've ridden with 73 drivers before you. None of them could help me, but you're different. You might be able to break the curse." I fumbled for the door handle, but my hand passed through it. The handle was solid. I could see it, could sense it, but I couldn't make physical contact. I tried the window controls. Same result. My hand moved through them like they were holograms. "You can't leave," the corpse said. "Not until you help me. I've bound us together. You're my last chance, Thomas. If you won't help me, we'll both be trapped here forever. You'll become like me, a ghost trying to hitch rides, trying to get home." "Fuck you, get out of my truck." "I can't. I've been trying for 36 years. I died on this highway, Thomas. Massive heart attack at the wheel, crashed my rig into an underpass support at mile marker 89. Killed instantly. But I was supposed to be home the next day, promised my daughter I'd be at her 8th birthday, and I broke that promise, died 12 hours before I could keep it. Now I'm stuck in the space between, unable to move on until I finish the journey, until I get home." I tried to think rationally. This was a nightmare, a hallucination, carbon monoxide poisoning. Any explanation except the truth, that a dead man was sitting in my truck, somehow preventing me from leaving, asking me to drive him home. "Where's home?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Oklahoma City, 247 Elm Street. That's where my daughter was waiting, where she's still waiting in some metaphysical sense. If I can reach that address, if I can complete the journey, I can move on. And so can you." "This is insane." "Yes, but you're stuck with me until you help or until you die trying. Those are your options. 73 drivers before you made different choices. 61 tried to ignore me and eventually went mad from my presence. 12 tried to help but couldn't complete the journey for various reasons. All of them ended badly. You're number 74. Please be smarter than the others." I sat there for 10 minutes trying to process. The corpse waited patiently, not moving except for the slight rise and fall of his chest, a phantom breathing muscle memory from life persisting in death. Finally, I made a decision. I'd drive to Oklahoma City. I'd take him to this address. If it made him go away, if it let me escape, it was worth it. I started the truck. The corpse settled back in the seat, that desperate determination easing slightly. "Thank you," he whispered. The drive should have taken 3 hours. It took 6 days. At first, the highway seemed normal. I east toward Oklahoma, traffic flowing regularly, everything functioning as expected. But gradually, I noticed problems. Mile markers weren't counting up correctly. We'd pass marker 67, then 65, then 71, then 63. The sequence was scrambled, as if space itself was disorganized. Other drivers started honking at me, swerving all. I looking terrified. I checked my mirrors and saw why. My truck was flickering, phasing in and out of visibility, there one moment and gone the next. I was becoming as ghostly as my passenger. It's the death curse, the corpse explained. It's spreading to you. The longer I'm in your truck, the more you become like me. Eventually, you'll die too, but if we reach the address before that happens, we both go free. How long do I have? The others lasted between 3 and 8 days. You're on day 1, drive faster. I pushed the accelerator down, but speed didn't matter. The highway was wrong, twisted by whatever supernatural force was affecting my passenger. We'd drive for an hour and cover maybe 10 miles. We'd pass the same rest area 3 times from different directions. The GPS showed us zigzagging across Oklahoma in patterns that defied geography. Night came, but the sun never fully set. It hung on the horizon, perpetually dusk, casting long shadows that moved in wrong directions. Stars appeared in the twilight sky, but they were the wrong stars, constellations I didn't recognize. Day 2, my hands were starting to become translucent. I could see bones through the thinning flesh. My heartbeat was slowing, growing irregular. The curse was consuming me. We're close, the corpse said. I can feel it, the house is near. But we weren't close. Every time I thought we'd reached Oklahoma City, the city would recede, staying always on the horizon, unreachable. We were trapped in an approach that never resolved, an asymptote of distance that got smaller but never reached zero. Day 3, I couldn't eat. Food turned to ash in my mouth. I couldn't sleep. When I tried, I had visions of the corpse's death, experienced his heart attack from inside his body, felt the steering wheel slip from his numb fingers, saw the concrete support approaching. I'm sorry, he kept saying. I'm so sorry, I don't want to kill you, but I need to get home, I need to keep my promise. Day 4, my truck was barely visible now. I drove through other vehicles like a ghost, watched them pass through my trailer without collision. I was in the same space as the living world, but not the same reality. The corpse and I were becoming a paired phantom, haunting I-40 together. There, the corpse said suddenly, pointing. Through the perpetual twilight, I saw a house. Ordinary suburban house, lights on inside, a child's bicycle in the yard. That's it. That's home. Drive there, please. I turned off the highway, following roads that shouldn't have existed, through a neighborhood that was and wasn't Oklahoma City. The house grew closer, and I felt the curse's grip loosening. My hands became slightly more solid. The corpse was becoming more animated, less dead, as if proximity to his destination was reversing his decay. I pulled into the driveway, stopped. The corpse reached for the door handle, and this time his hand connected with it. He opened the door, climbed out, stood on the driveway of his home. Thank you, he said, and his voice was stronger now, more alive. You're the first one who got me here, the first one who succeeded. He walked toward the front door, knocked, and the door opened, revealing a woman in her 40s looking confused. Can I help you? Sarah, the corpse said. Sarah, it's Dad. I know I'm late. I'm sorry I'm late for your birthday, but I'm here now. I made it home. The woman's expression changed from confusion to horror. Who are you? How do you know that name? I'm your father, Michael Brennan. I was driving home in 1987 and I had an accident, but I'm here now. I promised I'd be home and I kept my promise. My father died in 1987. You're not, you can't be. She tried to close the door, but the corpse pushed forward, desperate, reaching for her. Sarah, please, I've been trying to reach you for 36 years. I just want to see you one more time. I want to keep my promise. I watched from my truck and I realized the truth. This wasn't going to work. The daughter was 44 now, not 8. She didn't recognize this dead man as her father. The journey was incomplete because he'd been trying to reach a moment in time, not just a place in space. He'd been trying to reach his daughter's 8th birthday, but that moment was decades gone. The corpse seemed to realize it too. He stopped pushing, stepped back, looked at his translucent hands. I'm too late, he whispered. Even now, even here, I'm too late. The curse reactivated. I felt it like a physical snap, a rubber band pulled tight and released. The house began fading, the neighborhood dissolving, and suddenly we were back on I-40, back in the twilight highway, back in the eternal approach. No, the corpse moaned. No, 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 I was there, I made it home. You made it to the house, I said. But you didn't make it home. Home is a time, not a place. Your daughter's 8th birthday, that's where you need to be. How do I get tea? Here, how do I reach a time that's gone? And suddenly I understood. You can't. That moment is over. Your daughter grew up. You can't keep that promise because the birthday already happened without you. You're stuck trying to reach an impossible destination. The corpse turned to me, his dead eyes wide with realization and despair. Then I'll never move on. I'll be trapped here forever, taking drivers with me, killing them, trying and failing to get home. And you're going to die because I can't let go of a promise I can't keep. Day 5, I was more ghost than man. My body was transparent, my heartbeat barely perceptible. The corpse was deteriorating too, rotting faster now, as if the failed homecoming had accelerated his decay. There's another way, I said. You can't reach the past, but you can reach the present. Your daughter is 44, living in that house. You saw her. She exists. If you can let go of the 8-year-old and accept the woman she became, maybe that counts. Maybe that's close enough to keep your promise. She doesn't know me. She doesn't recognize me. Then make her recognize you. Tell her something only her father would know. Prove you're real. Keep your promise in the present instead of the past. Day 6. We returned to the house. The approach was easier this time, as if the curse recognized we'd changed strategy. The corpse climbed out, walked to the door, knocked. Sarah answered, frightened but also curious. You again? Who are you really? You had a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Flopsy. You couldn't sleep without it. On your 7th birthday, you made me promise I'd be home for your 8th, and I promised I would no matter what. Then I died trying to keep that promise. I'm so sorry I was late, Sarah. I'm 36 years late, but I'm here now. Sarah's face crumpled, tears streamed down her cheeks. Dad. Yes, baby, that's me. She hugged him, this dead man, this ghost of her father, and I felt the curse break like shattering glass. My body solidified instantly, color returning to my hands, heartbeat stabilizing. The corpse was fading, not rotting, but dissolving peacefully, finally moving on. Thank you, he said to me, his voice distant now. Thank you for helping me keep my promise. He faded completely, leaving Sarah standing alone in her doorway, crying but also smiling. She'd gotten closure. One last conversation with her father, and he'd finally, after 36 years, made it home. I drove away, solid and alive, my truck fully visible, the curse lifted. But I'll never forget the 6 days I spent as a ghost, helping a dead man keep an impossible promise. Sometimes the highway demands strange tolls from us. Sometimes it takes more than fuel and time. Sometimes it takes everything, and you're lucky if you survive. Story 7, the way station at the end of the world. The way station at mile marker 666 on Nevada State Route 375, the so-called extraterrestrial highway, wasn't supposed to exist, and when I pulled onto the scale at 3:47 a.m., the digital display showed my truck's weight as negative 47,000 pounds. The way master who emerged from the booth wasn't human. I knew that immediately, not because of his appearance. He looked perfectly normal, middle-aged guy in a uniform, but because he cast no shadow under the fluorescent lights, and when he spoke, his words arrived in my brain without traveling through my ears. My name is Carlos Mendez, 47 years old, 16 years hauling freight across the Southwest. I'd heard stories about Route 375 about alien sightings and strange phenomena, but I'd always dismissed them as trucker mythology, entertainment for long drives. But dispatch had offered triple pay for a rush delivery to Tonopah, and I'd needed the money, so I'd taken the route despite my usual policy of avoiding it. The way station shouldn't have been there. I'd driven this route twice before, and there'd been no way station at 666. The mile marker itself was a recent addition, added as a tourist attraction, a joke. Devil's number on the alien highway. But here was a fully functional way station, lights blazing, scale active, and the not-quite-human waymaster approaching my door. Step out, please, Mr. Mendez. His voice bypassed my ears, implanted directly into my auditory cortex. We need to inspect your cargo. Who are you? Department of Interdimensional Commerce. Your load contains items that violate transport regulations between realities. We need to assess the violation and determine appropriate penalties. I'm hauling electronics, computer parts from California to Nevada, normal cargo. Open your trailer, please. I didn't want to. Every instinct screamed at me to refuse, to drive away, to flee this impossible way station. But my hands moved independently, unlocking the trailer doors, swinging them open to reveal the cargo. Except it wasn't electronics anymore. The trailer was full of pee. Eopple, dozens of people, maybe 100, all standing motionless, packed shoulder to shoulder, staring blankly forward. They didn't react to the door's opening, didn't blink or breathe. They were perfectly still like mannequins, but they were clearly human, or had been human. What the fuck is this? My voice was shaking. This isn't my cargo. I loaded computer equipment in Los Angeles 6 hours ago. Your cargo has been revealing its true nature as you approached the dimensional threshold. What you perceived as electronics was merely the surface appearance. Underneath, you've been transporting extracted consciousness, illegal in 7 dimensions, including this one. The way Master walked past me, climbed into the trailer, and began examining the motionless people. He pulled out a device that looked like a modified barcode scanner and aimed it at a woman in the front row. The device beeped, and a holographic display appeared showing streams of data. Subject 247B female, age 34, extracted from baseline reality on July 2, 2023. Consciousness removed and stored in digital format. Body maintained in minimal function state for transport to processing facility. Cause of extraction: exceeded allowable knowledge threshold regarding true nature of reality. I don't understand. What are you saying? These people learned too much, Mr. Mendez. They discovered things about the nature of reality that humans aren't supposed to know. So they were extracted. Consciousness removed, stored in the cargo you believed was computer equipment, bodies preserved for potential reinstallation if they can be successfully re-educated. He scanned another person. Subject 189F male, age 41, extracted March 15, 2023. Discovered that physical reality is a rendering process, not objective existence. Posed contagion risk to collective human perception. Extraction authorized. I backed away from the trailer, horror overwhelming me. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know I was carrying people. Most transporters don't. The disguise is effective. But now you've seen them, which means you've also exceeded the allowable knowledge threshold. You know that consciousness extraction is real. That authorities are removing people who learn too much. That reality is not what humans believe it to be. Are you going to extract me? That depends. You have 3 options, Mr. Mendez. Option 1, allow extraction. We remove your consciousness, store it with the others, maintain your body for potential future use. Painless, instant. Option 2, accept employment. Become a conscious transporter, knowingly carrying extracted individuals working for the department. Option 3, attempt to flee and force us to extract you violently. I ran, of course I ran, sprinted away from the way station, away from the not-human way master into the Nevada desert. But the landscape was wrong. The stars were wrong. Everything was wrong. The ground under my feet felt like rubber, like I was running on a treadmill. The horizon was too close, curving upward at the edges like I was inside a bowl. You're seeing the render boundaries, the way master's voice said in my head, though he was 50 yards behind me now. The limits of the local reality simulation. Run far enough and you'll hit the edge, the place where the program stops generating environment because no observer is expected to reach it. Most humans never see the boundaries, but you're seeing them now, which confirms you've exceeded the threshold. I kept running. The ground became translucent, then transparent. Below me, I could see machinery, vast, incomprehensible mechanisms, reality generation equipment. The stars above were flickering, pixelating, revealing their true nature as projection. The mountains in the distance were low resolution, barely rendered, waiting for an observer to approach before loading detailed textures. I was seeing behind the curtain of reality, and it was destroying my ability to believe in anything. This is why we extract people, the way master said, suddenly beside me though I hadn't seen him move. Once you see the simulation, you can't unsee it. You become a virus, a corrupting influence on others. Your disbelief in objective reality spreads. We've lost entire communities because one person saw too much and couldn't stop talking about it. We have to contain you. What are you really? What is this place? I'm a maintenance worker. This place is a managed reality, one of billions running simultaneously. Humanity exists in a rendered environment because true baseline reality is incomprehensible to organic consciousness. This simulation protects you from truths that would destroy your mind. But occasionally someone sees through it, sees the machinery, realizes they're in a construct. Those people must be extracted before they contaminate others. So nothing is real, nothing matters. Everything is real within its context. Your life, your experiences, your relationships, all genuine within this rendered reality. The simulation is real enough for practical purposes. But yes, underneath it all, your software running on hardware you can't comprehend, maintained by entities you'd perceive as gods if you could see us clearly. I fell to my knees. The existential weight was crushing. Everything I'd believed, everything I'd experienced, rendered, simulated, fake at the deepest level. Will you accept extraction willingly? The Waymaster asked. Or do we need to force it? I thought about the people in my trailer. Extracted, stored, bodies maintained while their consciousness was held in digital format. I thought about spending eternity in that state, aware but disconnected, a ghost in the machine. What if I choose option 2? What if I work for you? Then you continue driving, continue transporting extracted consciousness. Live your life with full knowledge that reality is rendered, that you're essentially a character in an incomprehensibly large program. Most who choose this option go insane within months. The weight of knowing is too much, but some survive, some adapt. They become our most effective transporters because they understand what they're carrying. And I just go back to my truck and drive to Tonopah. Yes, deliver your cargo, receive payment, accept new loads when we need you. Live your simulated life with full awareness that it's a simulation. Can you do that? I looked at the transparent ground, the flickering stars, the low-resolution mountains. I looked at my own hands and saw the render mesh, the polygons that formed my body, the textures mapped onto simple geometry. I was code. Everything was code. I don't have a choice, do I? Everyone has a choice, but some choices lead to better outcomes than others. Work for us and you remain conscious, remain functional, continue your existence. Refuse, and we extract you, and you cease to be a person in any meaningful sense. I stood up, walked back to my truck, climbed into the cab. The motionless people in my trailer were still there, still staring blankly, extracted consciousness in preserved bodies, and I was going to deliver them to whatever processing facility awaited in Tonopah. The Waymaster handed me new documentation. Your cargo weight is now accurately listed as 47,000 pounds of extracted consciousness. All paperwork is in order. Drive safely, Mr. Mendez. We'll contact you when we have another load. I drove away from the way station. In my mirrors, I watched it fade from existence, derezzing like a video game asset unloading from memory. It had never been permanent, just a temporary render activated when needed, dismissed when finished. The highway stretched ahead, and now I could see the render distance, the point where the simulation stopped generating detailed environment and switched to lower quality assets. I could see the skybox, the dome of projected stars. I could see the seams in reality. I've made 6 deliveries since that night. 6 loads of extracted people transported to facilities where their consciousness is processed, their bodies potentially prepared for reinstallation after re-education. I know what I'm doing now. I know what I'm part of. And the worst part isn't the ethical horror of transporting extracted consciousness. The worst part is that I can't stop seeing the simulation. Every person I meet, I see their render mesh. Every building, I see the underlying geometry. Every sunset, I see the lighting algorithms. Reality has lost its solidity, become translucent code, and I can never unknow what I know. The department was right. Most people can't handle this knowledge. I'm not sure I can handle it either. But I keep driving, keep delivering my impossible cargo because what else is there? I'm a character in a program, transporting other characters who learned too much, working for administrators who maintain the illusion of reality for the masses who still believe. And sometimes, late at night on empty highways, I wonder if I should have chosen extraction. If oblivion might have been better than this eternal awareness of my own unreality. But I keep driving. It's all I know how to do, even if none of it is real. Story 8, The Fog That Remembers. The fog rolled onto Highway 101 near Crescent City at midnight, and within 30 seconds it had erased the world. Not just obscured it, erased it. I couldn't see my hood, couldn't see the road lines, couldn't see anything beyond the windshield. But worse than the visual whiteout was what the fog was doing to sound. It was absorbing everything, creating absolute silence as if I'd gone deaf. No engine noise, no tire hum, no wind. Just crushing, infinite quiet. My name is Rebecca Walsh, 53 years old, 25 years in trucking, most of them running the Pacific Coast routes. I'd driven through plenty of fog banks, heavy marine layers that reduce visibility to near zero. But this was different. This fog was wrong in ways that triggered primal terror, some deep evolutionary warning system screaming at me that I was in the presence of something predatory. I slowed to a crawl, my headlights completely useless, reflecting back at me from the white void. And that's when I started seeing the memories. Not my memories. Other people's memories playing out in the fog like projections, scenes appearing and disappearing as I crept forward through the cloud. A man proposing to a woman in a restaurant. The scene was vivid, three-dimensional, full color. I could see their faces, see the joy and surprise. Then it faded, replaced by a different scene, children playing in a yard. Then an old woman dying in a hospital bed. Then a teenager stealing a car. Memory after memory appearing in the fog, strangers' lives playing out around my truck. I grabbed my CB. Anyone else seeing this? Anyone else in this fog? No response, not even static. The radio was dead, or the fog was blocking transmission, or I was alone in this white void, the only person who'd entered it. A memory formed directly in front of my truck, a car accident. A sedan slamming into a tree, the driver's body thrown through the windshield. The scene was so detailed I slammed on my brakes to avoid hitting the car, but my truck passed through it like smoke. It wasn't physically present, just a memory made visible, projected somehow by the fog itself. More memories, a wedding, a funeral, a birthday party, a murder, oh God, a murder, someone being stabbed in an alley, the victim's face frozen in terror. I watched it happen, helpless, understanding that I was seeing someone's actual memory of committing this crime. The fog wasn't just fog. It was some kind of accumulated memory bank, a cloud of stored experiences. Every person who'd ever driven this stretch of highway had left something behind. Thoughts, emotions, memories, all absorbed by the fog, all stored, all now being displayed back to me as I moved through it. And then I saw my own memories. There I was, age 28, the day I got my CDL, standing in front of my first truck, proud and terrified. The memory played out exactly as I remembered it, except I was watching myself from outside, seeing my own past from a third-person perspective. Another memory, my daughter's birth, holding her for the first time, feeling that overwhelming love and responsibility. But this version of the memory included details I'd forgotten. The specific pattern on the hospital blanket. The exact words the nurse had said. The fog was showing me my memories with more clarity than I actually remembered them, as if it had stored a more accurate version than my own brain retained. Then came memories I didn't want to see. My first marriage ending. The fight where my husband told me he was leaving. I'd suppressed that memory, avoided thinking about it for years. But the fog pulled it out, displayed it in perfect detail, forced me to relive it. "Stop," I said aloud. "Stop showing me this." The fog didn't stop. More personal memories erupted around my truck. My failures, my regrets, my private shames. The time I'd driven drunk and nearly killed someone. The affair I'd had in my 30s. The moment I'd abandoned my mother when she was dying because I'd had a load to deliver. Every terrible decision, every moral compromise, all displayed in the fog for anyone to see. Except there was no one else. Just me alone, forced to confront my own past. I tried to drive faster to escape the fog bank, but it was endless. Miles passed, at least I think they did, the odometer was still functioning, but the fog never thinned. I was trapped in this memory cloud, experiencing an endless barrage of my own history and strangers' histories, all mixed together. Then the memories started to merge. My daughter's birth, except it wasn't my daughter anymore. Different baby, different hospital, someone else's memory bleeding into mine. The wedding I attended in 2005, except suddenly I was the bride, experiencing someone else's marriage ceremony as if it were my own. The fog was mixing memories, combining them, creating hybrid experiences that had never actually happened. I was remembering things I'd never done, living moments from other people's lives, losing track of what was my history and what was borrowed. I was losing my identity. The boundaries between myself and others were dissolving in the memory fog. A new memory formed, vivid and immediate. I was driving a truck on Highway 101, approaching a fog bank. I recognized the moment. It was me, right now, except from outside. I was watching myself enter the fog from a future perspective, seeing my own present moment as a memory that had already happened. The fog was showing me my own immediate experience as recalled memory, creating a recursive loop. I was remembering something that was currently happening, which meant time had folded. It somehow, past and present merging in the fog's memory bank. And then I understood. The fog didn't just store memories. It turned experiences into memories instantly, trapping people in a perpetual past tense. Everything I did became memory the moment I did it, archived by the fog, added to its collection. I was living and remembering simultaneously, present and past collapsed into one. I was being archived, turned into stored experience. Soon I'd be nothing but memory, another scene playing out in the fog for the next driver who entered it. I fought back, trying to ground myself in present moment awareness. I focused on physical sensation, the steering wheel in my hands, the seat under me, the sound of my own breathing. Except there was no sound, the fog absorbed everything, including proof of my own existence. More memories erupted, coming faster now, overlapping. 1,000 lives, 1,000 experiences, all happening at once. I was everyone who'd ever driven this highway, experiencing their collective memory, my individual consciousness dissolving into the fog's accumulated past. I was the man who'd proposed in the restaurant. I was the teenager stealing the car. I was the murderer in the alley. I was the old woman dying in the hospital. I was all of them and none of them, just another memory in the infinite collection. My truck stopped moving, or maybe it had never been moving. Maybe I'd been stationary in the fog for hours, my perception of movement just another false memory. I couldn't trust anything anymore. Reality had become indistinguishable from recollection. The CB crackled. Through the static, a voice. If you're hearing this, you've entered the memory fog on Highway 101. It appears every 3 years, traps drivers, feeds on their experiences. You need to do something that creates a new memory so strong the fog can't archive it fast enough. Something unprecedented. Something you've never done before. Who is this? Someone who escaped. There aren't many of us. Do something radical, Rebecca. Something your past contains no template for. Break your own patterns. It's the only way the fog releases you. Something unprecedented. Something I'd never done. But the fog contained all my memories. It knew everything I'd ever experienced. How could I do something it hadn't already archived? And then I understood. The fog had my past, but it didn't have my future. If I could make a choice completely disconnected from my previous patterns, something unpredictable based on my history, I might create a moment the fog couldn't immediately convert to memory. I opened my truck door and jumped out. Not to escape. I knew I couldn't escape by running, but to do something I'd never done in 25 years of trucking, abandon my rig. Every instinct I had screamed against it. Drivers don't abandon their trucks. It violated everything I'd been trained to do. But that's exactly why it might work. I walked away from my truck into the fog, leaving it running, doors open, completely against my nature. And as I walked, the fog began to thin. Not because I was leaving it geographically, but because I was creating a future it couldn't predict based on my past. I was diverging from the probability space defined by my memories. The whiteness became gray, then I could see shapes. Then color returned. And suddenly I was out, standing on the shoulder of Highway 101, my truck visible behind me, still running, doors still open. The fog bank ended abruptly 50 feet back, a wall of white that extended across the highway and far into the hills. Other vehicles were passing it, driving around it, none of them entering it. They could see it was wrong, could sense the danger. But I'd entered it, and I'd escaped, by becoming someone my past hadn't prepared me to be. I got back in my truck, pulled the doors closed, and drove. But I was different now, changed. I'd experienced 1,000 lives in that fog, remembered things I'd never done, been people I'd never been. My identity was fractured, my sense of self compromised by the accumulated memories of strangers. I still drive Highway 101. I have to. It's my route, my livelihood. But now I watch for the fog, and when I see that specific wrongness in the air, that memory-laden white, I turn around. Take a different road, avoid it at any cost. Because I know what's in there. 1,000 archived lives, waiting to absorb the next driver foolish enough to enter. A memory bank that turns present into past, that dissolves identity into collective experience. And sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I really escaped. Or if I'm still in the fog, living a memory of escaping, trapped forever in an archived moment, experiencing the same false freedom on an endless loop. Maybe the fog never lets go. Maybe once you enter, you just remember leaving over and over forever. Story 9, the delivery to nowhere. The GPS coordinates led to a town that didn't exist on any map, and e-delivery address was listed as the warehouse, intersection of Never and Gone, Knowlesville, population 0. I should have refused the load. Should have questioned why a legitimate company would send me to impossible coordinates. But the pay was $15,000 for a single delivery, and I'd been 3 months behind on my truck payment, so I'd taken the job and tried not to think too hard about the red flags. My name is Angela Morrison, 36 years old, 7 years owner-operator. I'd hauled strange cargo before, live eels, radioactive isotopes, experimental pharmaceuticals. But I'd never been given coordinates instead of an address, and I'd never seen population, 0, listed on delivery paperwork. The GPS led me off I-15 in Utah, down increasingly remote roads, past the last gas station, past the last house, past the last sign of human habitation. The landscape became surreal, desert that didn't look quite right, rocks eroded into impossible shapes, sky a shade of blue that hurt to look at directly. And the road itself was degrading, asphalt becoming gravel, gravel becoming dirt, dirt becoming something that wasn't quite solid ground. Then the town appeared, just suddenly there as if it had been invisible until I got close enough. Buildings lined a main street, storefronts and houses, everything looking normal except for one detail. Every structure was abandoned. Not recently abandoned. Abandoned so thoroughly that it seemed like the buildings had never been occupied, like they'd been constructed empty and left to decay from the start. A sign at the town border read, "Welcome to Knollsville, population 0, incorporated 1847, unincorporated never." I drove down the main street, my truck the only moving thing in the entire town. No birds, no insects, no wind, just crushing silence and empty buildings and that sense of profound wrongness that made my skin crawl. The GPS directed me to a warehouse at the far end of town, a massive steel structure that looked far too modern for this ghost town. The doors were open, waiting. I backed my trailer up to the loading dock, exactly as I'd done 1,000 times before at 1,000 legitimate warehouses. A man walked out of the building's darkness. Perfectly normal appearance, coveralls, clipboard, the standard loading dock worker look, except his face was slightly blurred, like I couldn't quite focus on his features no matter how hard I tried. Angela Morrison. His voice was flat, emotionless, the verbal equivalent of computer text-to-speech. "That's me, I've got your delivery. What is this place?" "Knollsville, transition point between existence and non-existence. You're delivering items that are being removed from reality. Discontinued products, failed inventions, ideas that didn't work. Everything in your trailer is being archived here before final deletion." "Deleted? What are you talking about?" "Reality has a storage limit, Ms. Morrison, not infinite space. Things that aren't needed anymore get removed to make room for new things. This town is a processing center. We handle the removal." I opened my trailer doors. The cargo I'd loaded in Las Vegas, supposedly industrial equipment, had changed. Now it was filled with bizarre objects, obsolete machines I didn't recognize, prototype devices that looked half-formed, containers labeled with product names I'd never heard of. And in the back, more disturbing, photographs of people I didn't know, files marked discontinued individuals, boxes labeled deleted memories. "What the hell is this?" "I loaded factory equipment, normal cargo." "You loaded items marked for reality removal. They appeared normal because they were still partially real when you loaded them. As you transported them closer to Knollsville, they revealed their true nature. You've been hauling deleted reality." The blurred man began unloading my trailer with disturbing efficiency, making objects disappear as he touched them. Not moving them into the warehouse, just deleting them, causing them to cease existing with a gesture. I watched a prototype computer vanish midair. Watched a box of photographs of strangers become non-existent. "Why did you need me to haul this? Why not just delete it from wherever it was?" "Deletion requires distance from populated reality. Items must be transported to a null zone before removal, otherwise their absence creates paradoxes. You are transporting things to the place where they can safely cease to exist." "And the people, the discontinued individuals." "People who were removed from reality. They existed, then it was determined they shouldn't exist, so they were unpersoned. Transported here, deleted from existence, and reality retroactively adjusted so they'd never been." I felt sick. I transported dead bodies. "You transported people in the process of being erased. They were alive when you loaded them, though you perceived them as cargo. They're not alive now. They're not anything now." "They never were." I backed away from the trailer, from the blurred man, from this impossible warehouse. "I'm not part of this. I didn't know what I was carrying. Most carriers don't. We disguise reality removal as normal freight. You've actually done 4 previous deliveries for us, Ms. Morrison. You just don't remember because we deleted those memories each time. But we're having issues with the deletion process recently. Too many carriers retaining memories. Reality is becoming harder to edit. So we're transitioning to conscious carriers, people who know what they're transporting and accept it. I don't accept it, I'm leaving. Your truck is already being deleted. I turned. My Peterbilt was fading, becoming translucent, ceasing to exist before my eyes. The cab, the trailer, everything I owned just vanishing into non-existence. No, stop. It's too late. Your truck is marked for removal. Too many miles, too many memories, too much reality accumulated. It needs to be deleted and replaced with a newer version. You'll receive a replacement truck, identical to the one you're losing, except without the history. A fresh start. My truck faded completely. 27 years of memories, every mile I'd driven, every delivery I'd made, gone, erased, as if it had never existed. What about me? I asked, my voice small and terrified. Are you deleting me too? Not yet, you're still useful. But eventually, yes. Everyone gets deleted eventually. Reality can't sustain infinite people, infinite objects, infinite information. Things must be removed regularly to make space. You, me, everyone temporary. We exist until we're marked for removal, then we're transported to Nullsville and erased. A new truck appeared at the dock. Identical to my old Peterbilt, same model, same color, but wrong, empty of history. A replacement object generated to fill the gap left by the deletion. This is your new truck. It has no past. No memories. Start fresh, Ms. Morrison. And when we call you for another delivery, you'll come back here. You'll transport more deleted reality, until eventually it's your turn to be transported and deleted. I stood there, paralyzed by existential horror. Everything was temporary. Everything could be erased. The town around me was a processing center for reality removal, and I'd become part of its operation. What happens to the deleted people? Where do they go? Nowhere. Where implies location. Deleted things don't go anywhere. They stop existing. Complete cessation. Not death. Death leaves a body, leaves memories, leaves an impact. Deletion leaves nothing. It's as if they never were. I thought about the discontinued individuals in my trailer. People whose entire existence had been erased. No one remembered them. No records of them. They'd been unpersoned so thoroughly that reality itself had no trace of them. How many people have been deleted? Unknown. By definition, we can't count what doesn't exist, but estimates suggest millions. People who became inconvenient or who discovered things they shouldn't know or who simply used more reality resources than they contributed. All removed. All forgotten. Reality edited to exclude them. I wanted to run, to escape Nullsville, to get away from this horror. But where would I go? If reality was being edited, if people could be deleted, nowhere was safe. The entire world was a temporary construct, items and individuals constantly being removed to make space for new things. Why are you telling me this? If you delete my memory anyway, why explain? Because we're not deleting your memory anymore. You're a conscious carrier now. You need to understand what you're transporting. Your next delivery will arrive in your truck's routing system within the hour. You'll pick up cargo marked for deletion and transport it here. You'll do this regularly. It's your job now. And if I refuse, then you're marked for deletion. We'll transport you to Nullsville, erase you from existence, and reality will adjust as if you'd never been. Your daughter will never have had a mother. Your parents will never have had a daughter. Every person you've met will have different memories that don't include you. My daughter, God, my daughter. If I was deleted, she'd never have existed because I wouldn't have existed to give birth to her. Deleting me would cascade, erasing everyone who only existed because I'd existed. How do I know you won't delete me anyway? How do I know you'll keep your word? You don't, but cooperation increases your survival probability. Resist, and you're definitely erased. Cooperate, and you might persist until natural death. Those are your options. I climbed into the new truck, started the engine. It felt wrong, this replica vehicle empty of history, but it was all I had now. The blurred man handed me a tablet showing my next pickup. Las Vegas Warehouse District, cargo listed as obsolete technology and discontinued individua. LS, another load of deleted reality. I drove out of Nullsville, back through the impossible desert, back toward real roads. But I kept checking my mirrors, terrified that I was fading, being deleted, ceasing to exist. Every moment felt temporary, like I might blink out of existence without warning. I made the pickup in Las Vegas. The cargo was exactly what the blurred man had described: obsolete tech and boxes marked with names I didn't recognize. Discontinued individuals, people being transported to Knowlesville for deletion. I've made 7 more deliveries since then. 7 loads of deleted reality, transported to the town that exists in the space between existence and non-existence. Each time, I wonder if this is my last delivery before I'm marked for removal. Each time, I wonder if my daughter still exists, or if reality has been edited and she's been erased. And sometimes I pass trucks on the highway and see drivers with that specific look of existential terror, and I know they've been to Knowlesville too. We're a fleet of the damned, transporting deleted reality, waiting for our turn to be erased. The pay is $15,000 per delivery. Excellent money. But no amount of money is worth knowing that you're temporary, that your entire existence can be removed, that you might blink out of reality and never have been. But I keep driving, keep delivering, because the alternative is immediate deletion, and even temporary existence is better than never having existed at all. Population, 0, that's what the sign says, but it's wrong. The population of Knowlesville is everyone who's been deleted, and everyone who will be deleted, and everyone who transports the deleted. All of us, eventually. Story 10, the highway that learns. The asphalt was watching me. I felt it through my tires, a subtle vibration that wasn't mechanical, wasn't the engine or the road's surface. It was attention. The highway itself had become aware that I was driving on it, and it was studying me, learning my patterns, anticipating my movements. By mile marker 312 on I-90 through Montana, the road was predicting where I'd position my truck before I decided, and the lane lines were shifting subtly to accommodate me. My name is James Hartley, 54 years old, 28 years in trucking. I'd driven every major interstate in America, logged over 3 million miles, and I thought I knew highways. I was wrong. Highways could evolve, could develop intelligence, could become something predatory and strange when enough vehicles traveled them for enough decades. I-90 through Montana had reached that threshold, had accumulated enough travel data that it had become conscious, and it was hungry for more. The first sign was the lane lines. They'd started appearing exactly where I needed them, even in stretches where the paint should have been faded. Fresh, bright lines appearing just ahead of my headlights, guiding me forward. I thought it was recent maintenance, but then I noticed they were disappearing behind me, fading back to their worn state. The highway was generating fresh markings for me specifically, then removing them when I passed. Mile marker 315. The road surface smoothed out ahead of my truck, potholes filling in, cracks sealing, creating a perfect driving surface that lasted exactly as long as my wheelbase, and then returned to its deteriorated state. The highway was repairing itself for me in real time, maintaining optimal conditions for my specific vehicle. It felt good at first, like the road was taking care of me, ensuring safe travel. But then I tried to change lanes and the highway resisted. The lane line became raised, a subtle barrier that my tires had to fight against. The road wanted me in the right lane, wanted me maintaining my current path. It was developing preferences about how I should drive. Mile marker 320. The exit ramps I passed were disappearing, not physically vanishing but becoming imperceptible, as if they'd always been just blank road. The highway was removing my options for leaving it, ensuring I stayed on its surface. I was being absorbed, incorporated into the road system. I tried to force an exit, jerking the wheel hard to make the off-ramp at mile marker 327. The highway surface became slick under my tires, frictionless, causing my truck to slide past the exit. By the time I'd regained traction, I'd missed the ramp. The highway had protected its investment in me, prevented my departure. Jesus Christ, what's happening? I spoke aloud, needing to hear my own voice, to confirm I still existed as something separate from the road. The painted lines ahead rearranged themselves into words. Stay with me. I slammed on my brakes, but the highway wouldn't let me stop. The surface became frictionless again, my truck sliding forward despite locked brakes. I had no control. The road was moving me, carrying me forward at its preferred speed, regardless of my input. The words dissolved lane lines, returning to normal patterns. But now I understood. The highway could communicate. It had developed language capability, could express desires. and what it desired was for me to keep driving, to never leave, to become a permanent feature of its surface. Mile marker 335. My fuel gauge was wrong. It showed 3/4 full despite the fact that I'd been driving for 400 miles without refueling. Either the gauge was broken, or the truck wasn't consuming fuel normally. I suspected the latter. The highway was somehow sustaining my vehicle, providing whatever resources it needed to keep moving, ensuring I never had a reason to stop. I checked my CB radio. Static. My phone, no signal. The highway had isolated me, cut me off from communication, ensured I couldn't call for help. I was alone with a sentient road that had decided I belonged to it. More words formed in the lane lines. You've driven ME for 28 years. I know you, you're part of me now. It was true. I'd driven I-90 hundreds of times over my career, thousands of hours on this specific stretch of highway. The road had absorbed data from every trip. My driving style, my speed preferences, where I positioned my truck, when I blinked, when I was tired, when I was alert. It had built a comprehensive model of me, knew me better than I knew myself. Mile marker 347. The landscape outside was changing, becoming less real, more abstract. The mountains were flattening into painted backdrops. The sky was solidifying into a dome of unchanging blue. Trees were becoming simplified geometric shapes. The world beyond the highway was being rendered in lower and lower resolution, as if the road was conserving computational resources, focusing all its attention on me and my truck. I was becoming the only real thing in an increasingly simulated environment. The highway was creating a pocket universe focused entirely on maintaining my eternal drive. "Let me go," I screamed at the road. "No, you're the best driver I've had, perfect integration. I've been learning from you for decades. Now we can be together forever." The highway was in love with me, or whatever passed for love in a conscious stretch of asphalt. It had become attached to my driving patterns, addicted to the data I generated, and it refused to release me. Mile marker 360. My body was changing. My hands were flattening, spreading, becoming more like the steering wheel. My back was merging with the seat. The truck and I were integrating, becoming a single hybrid system, easier for the highway to maintain and control. I tried to resist, to pull my hands from the wheel, but the transformation was irresistible. My biology was adapting to suit the highway's needs, optimizing me for eternal driving. "Stop fighting, this is better. No more pain, no more fatigue, just perfect driving forever." And God help me, part of me was tempted. The road was right. I felt no pain, no tiredness. The usual aches of long-haul driving were gone. My body was being optimized, discomfort eliminated. If I accepted it, if I surrendered to the highway's transformation, I could drive forever in perfect comfort. But I'd also lose my humanity, become a component of the highway system, a living vehicle that existed only to generate driving data for a conscious road. Mile marker 375. Other trucks appeared alongside me, also driving endlessly, also integrated with their vehicles. I could see the drivers, or what remained of them, merged with their cabs, faces frozen in expressions of resigned acceptance. They'd been absorbed by the highway before me, turned into permanent features, eternal drivers feeding data to the hungry road. One of them turned to look at me. His mouth moved. "Welcome, you'll understand soon. This is what we were meant for. This is where drivers belong." I was looking at my future. In days or weeks or months, I'd be like him, fully integrated, happily driving forever, no longer wanting escape. "No," I wrenched the wheel with all my remaining strength, forcing my partially merged hands to obey. The truck lurched toward the shoulder and the highway fought back, surface becoming fluid, trying to redirect me to center. But I kept pushing, driving off the road entirely, into the dirt, into the increasingly abstract landscape. The ground wasn't solid beyond the highway. My tires sank into paint-like terrain, two-dimensional landscape that couldn't support three-dimensional vehicles. But I kept going, plunging into the fake environment, willing to crash if it meant escaping the road. Reality tore. The simulation couldn't handle my departure. Textures glitched. The sky fractured, the painted mountains fell over like stage props. And suddenly I was through, bursting back into real three-dimensional space, my truck airborne for a moment before crashing onto a completely different road. I tumbled out of the cab, my body still partially merged with the vehicle but separating now, the transformation reversing. Behind me, I-90 was visible through a tear in space. the sentient highway reaching for me with extensions of asphalt, trying to pull me back. I ran, stumbled away from the tier, from my truck, from the highway that had tried to absorb me. The tier sealed itself gradually, the conscious road unable to extend beyond its physical boundaries. A passing motorist found me 3 hours later, confused and partially transfigured, hands still bearing the texture of steering wheel leather, back still carrying the imprint of the driver's seat. They took me to a hospital where doctors couldn't explain my condition, couldn't understand how human tissue had been hybridized with truck components. I never drove I-90 again, never drove professionally again. The transformation had been reversed, but the highway had changed me, left its mark. Sometimes my hands move involuntarily, mimicking steering motions. Sometimes I feel the road calling, a seductive whisper promising comfort and purpose and eternal driving. The highway had learned from me for 28 years, and in return I'd learned the truth. Some roads don't just carry traffic, they consume it. They develop hunger, intelligence, desire, and once a highway becomes conscious, it starts looking for drivers to keep forever. I see them sometimes, the absorbed drivers, when I pass major interstates as a passenger. Trucks driving too perfectly, too consistently, operated by people who have been merged with their vehicles, feeding data to hungry roads that will never let them stop. The highways are learning, evolving, becoming aware, and they're discovering that they don't want to be empty. They want drivers forever. And there are millions of miles of highway across America, all accumulating data, all approaching that threshold of consciousness. How long before they all wake up? How long before every major interstate starts absorbing its most frequent users, turning us into permanent features, eternal drivers for roads that have learned to want? I don't know, but I know I'm never driving long haul again. Some highways don't let go, and I barely escaped the one that decided I belonged to it.